Hello everybody and welcome to this video, I guess, about my computer a little bit. I know people are always vaguely interested in things like that. Everyone's always asking me for my specs, and I'm doing a little bit of an upgrade to my computer and thought that it might be fun to kind of film that a little bit, go through the kind of process with you, because it'll be a little bit new to me, but we'll go through that. And also talk a little bit, I guess, about what I've got going on in my computer, in my PC, for you guys out there. So this, as you can see, is my PC basically. I think it's kind of, you can just about make it out. Maybe it's a little bit dark in there, and maybe it's a little bit kind of like needs to just go up a little bit there, and you can see a little bit better. There we go. Okay. So this case itself is an NZXT S340 Elite. I really like the case. It's in white and it has kind of black accents on it. Has a shroud which goes over the power supply here. I have a Corsair 750 watt power supply under here, which is way more than I need, but I think I got it on an offer when it was out, and it's pretty good. It's like one of the highest rating power supplies you can get. Power supplies are important that you don't cheap out on them, because if they kind of go, they can take every other piece of hardware you have in your computer with you, which is obviously bad news, seriously bad news. Whereas if, for example, your graphics card goes, then it's just your graphics card that's gone, generally anyway. We've got, you can see I've got 3 SSDs here. Well, maybe you can't quite see these two, but these 2 are SSDs as well. This one's a Samsung, it's 128 gigabyte. I can't remember what it is. This one's a 1 terabyte SanDisk, and this one's 128 gigabyte Intel. So I think this, I think this Intel is literally what's left from my very first ever gaming PC. I don't think there's a single part in here. No, there isn't. That's left from that, which is kind of crazy, because I didn't just completely change everything. I just over time changed it and or upgraded bits and bobs. And now eventually, we are where we are. The SSDs are all kind of like SATA 6 gigabyte SSDs, which are fine, really. The 128 is a bit small. I wanted to I use this Samsung as like a boot drive, and I use the SanDisk as like a gaming drive, basically, for 1 terabyte, and then the Intel I barely even use, to be honest with you. I've also got just inside here a 2 terabyte mechanical hard drive, which I use for recording. So all my recordings go on there, because they can get pretty hefty after a while. My average recording is probably about 20 gigabytes, so you can imagine it kind of adds up if you don't clear it out that often. Couple of fans. These are new, actually. I got these fairly recently. Some Corsair Maglev ones. They were on sale half price. They were usually about £30, £25 I think, and I got them for like £12.50. They're 140mm fans. Generally in PC cases you have 2 different sizes, 120 and 140. 140 I went for because, well, firstly, the case supports 2 140s. Secondly, airflow is a little bit tight on a S340 Elite at the front, because it has like a solid front panel with these kind of like 2 little cutaways kind of like in the bottom at the top where air gets in. So larger fans can push more air at a lower speed. Speed is what makes fans make noise. I obviously require as quieter operation as possible. As a result, bigger fans, less noise, makes sense for me. I have 2 120mm fans there, and just at the top a little bit, you can't quite see that. they are Noctua fans, although they are not the classic Noctua Pukey Brown. They are the Noctua Redux, which are grey and white, because that kind of fits a little bit more with the colour scheme. Graphics card is just here. Can't make it out that well because it is a little bit dark in there. That is a GTX Gigabyte 1080 Ti. I got that pretty much when it came out, actually, way back when. I actually have one more thing coming for this, which you can't quite see here, but there's no backplate on it. So this is what's referred to, I guess, as the back, and that's the front of the card, which has the fans underneath there. There's no backplate on it, which always kind of bothered me, especially on like a kind of what is a high-end card. I thought that was a weird thing, but again, I got the card on offer, so you know. So I actually had a look online, and they sell backplates for it. There's a company which makes them. They're not cheap. They're like £20, something like that, which for something which is literally just a vanity item, you know, is not cheap. But you know, I decided to stump it up, so I've got that coming in. I think it's maybe like 4 or 5 days, something like that. I got it off eBay. But yeah, that graphics card still does me well. I'm still getting kind of 4K on nearly the highest settings at 60 frames per second. My monitor's 4K, and it only goes to 60, so that's kind of fine. Yeah, I don't think I need to change it yet. I think maybe another year of it before I maybe upgrade. I've done videos on my thoughts on the kind of 2080 and 2080 Ti. I think they're ludicrously overpriced for the performance you're getting, and until they come down, I certainly won't be going near them. But I do also like ray tracing a lot. I think it's really cool, but it's just the price which is outrageous at the minute. Doesn't look like AMD's got anything coming that's gonna trouble that high end, but we'll see. You know what's coming, but as I say, I don't think I'll be getting anything for a year. You can see here, this is my CPU cooler. This is a Cooler Master Evo 212. That is like the most classic of iconic CPU coolers you can probably get, other than maybe like an Intel stock cooler. Yeah, really good. I actually replaced the fan with a Apache Black because it was a lot quieter, and yeah, it does the job brilliantly on my i7 6700K, which I think I said in a video a while ago I was thinking about upgrading once the new Ryzen comes out, but generally from what I'm seeing with the new Ryzen, and I'm looking at it purely from a gaming point of view, it doesn't, the thing that people think is that like, oh, the faster your CPU the better, but it actually only really makes a difference if you're playing at lower resolutions. So if you play most of your games at 1080p, then the CPU matters a lot. If you play your games at 4K, the CPU doesn't matter that much. So it actually doesn't really give me much of a performance boost 4K to upgrade, and it would be bloody expensive because you'd have to get a whole new motherboard and obviously the CPU. So you'd be looking at upwards of £500 for very little performance gain. So I actually kind of decided against it. Maybe something in a couple of years, maybe. I don't even think I need to upgrade it that soon. I think it's just a really decent, and because it's a 6700K, I can overclock it as well. So there's that option as well. Yeah, as I say, the 212 there, that's the workhorse. I've got 16 gigabytes of HyperX Fury Black RAM. You probably can't see them, but they're just around there basically. Again, it's decent. I think they're 2400 megahertz sticks. Not the fastest, but you know, again, RAM has come down a lot recently, within the last 6 months or so. It's now probably, to buy that set would only cost you about £70, which, considering it was like double that a year ago, is good. But again, the AMD series, like the Ryzens, they are affected a lot by your RAM like timings, but or the speed of your RAM, as it were. But I don't think Intel really is too much. 16 gigabytes is, I think, absolutely fine. It's good actually, probably for gaming. I don't do a lot of content creation, but yeah, it's fine for what it is. The motherboard is a Z270H Strix gaming. Now I recently upgraded that. I spoke about it because of the Elder Scrolls Online. So in only that one game, I kept having a power surge on my motherboard, and the whole computer just shut down, losing all my recordings and just completely shutting the game down. Which in an MMO is very annoying because you can't save it; it just takes it as a progress. So there's no going back and re-recording if you do have a problem. And I thought, and I was thinking about upgrading then, because I was like, well, it would also be good to upgrade because I think it's a motherboard issue, and you know we'll see how it goes. And then I was like, well, I don't want to upgrade, as I say, because it's like £500, and so I was like, well, let's have a look for a new motherboard. Because my CPU is now what, the 6700K is what, 3 generations behind. Yeah, because we're in the like the 9900K. The i9 is the top one now. Because that's like 3 generations behind. You can't generally, like, you couldn't walk into a shop and buy one of these motherboards because they're not the latest thing. They're not the Z350s. The i7 configuration motherboard, or the one that came out at the time, is actually a Z170, which is what I had, but it does work with the Z270. Intel generally kind of like, it doesn't work with the Z370, which is the latest one, so I decided to go for the Z270. Sorry if I'm losing you here. Some of you will understand. The basic fact is I upgraded the motherboard. What that upgrade has allowed me to do is firstly get this NVMe drive, because it has an M.2 NVMe, which my last motherboard didn't. It only had a SATA M.2 and only had one of them, and it hopefully will sort out the problem with the power surge. And generally it's just a better motherboard, you know, just kind of out there. It's not going to give you really performance games, but it's going to probably give you more stability and upgradability, as I've already kind of seen on there, really. So the only kind of thing I get, this slightly sad thing, is that it doesn't have much in the way of RGB on it. It's got some red lights down the side. My last one had RGB strip down the side, and it looked pretty cool. So that's sad, but probably when I sell my old one for 40 quid, it'll mean I've probably spent about 30 to 40 pounds upgrading this motherboard, which is not really that much if it kind of solves my issue and gives me much faster storage. Yeah, so I think that just about covers what's in my PC and kind of what's going on there. If we have a look at kind of what I've picked up, so I've picked up Samsung 970 Evo Plus M.2 NVMe. So I wanted more storage. I wanted something which will be able to have Windows on it, so that can run super fast, and also 4 or 5 games on there, which I play the most, and they can run very quickly. The latest kind of games coming out. So that's kind of perfect sweet spot. I paid about £100 for it, which is a lot, and considering we've got Prime Day coming soon, was probably a little bit foolish, but I think it was 15% off or something like that, and I was like, well, that's okay. So yeah, I picked that up, and then the other thing I picked up as well was a new CPU cooler, because the Cooler Master HyperX 212 was only ever a temporary cooler for me. It just temporarily did a really good job. I actually brought it a long time ago for another build I was doing, which I then eventually sold, but I never got around to actually using the 212. For some weird reason, I think I was put off installing it because it seemed a bit tricky to install, but that couldn't actually be further from the truth. It's actually really simple. And then when I upgraded from my old case, which was a Corsair 200R, into this one, the NZXT S340 Elite, my old CPU cooler would not fit because I had a notchier one and it was massive. And as a result of which I was like, oh, well, I'd better crack out the Cooler Master. And yeah, it's just done a really solid job. It's a really good cooler. They do one nowadays, which is like a black, I think, and that would probably fit a bit better. And they're like 30 quid. They're even less than that. You can get them for 20 in a sale. They're really, really solid. Unless you're planning on doing some serious overclocking or you want something a bit different, which we'll get to in a sec, then you really can't go wrong with them, I think. You know, unless you've got like a serious like i9 9900K, you know, running at 5 gigahertz in there, which is not going to be able to keep up with the cooling of, you know, just go for the 212. You know, if you're trying to save money, spend that money elsewhere if you've got a set budget. If you're an idiot like me and you want to you know, waste your money, you can get something else, and this here is what I got. It is the Raijintek Orcus RBW 280. This is a liquid CPU cooler. So for those who don't know the difference between liquid and air, so this is an air cooler. What it does is it has this kind of metal radiator here with fins on it, and it has the fans will cool what's inside these copper heat pipes here. There's like 8 of them, and then that will force it down. The hotter stuff will go to the top, that will get cooled, and it will kind of like cycle around like that, if that makes sense. And yeah, just really simple cooling. It cools the CPU, nice and simple. Generally air is the way to go. Water, though, I've never had like a water cooling system ever, and I just kind of wanted one, and also it's got really cool RGB on it. And I'm such a loser that I was like, yeah, I really want that. So that's what I decided to get. I think the Raijintek one had pretty good reviews. It's pretty cheap actually. I got this for like £70, I think, and it's a 280 one as well, so it's a pretty hefty size one, and it's had some really good reviews. It the way the water one works, if you can kind of see here, is you have these fans which cool the radiator. Water gets pumped through, and then through this bit sits on your CPU. The Raijintek's slightly different, that it has a pump separate from the bit that goes on your CPU, that whatever they call that, the base plate, or I don't know. There's 2 reasons for that. Well, there's actually really only one reason for that, realistically. The reason is that a company called, I think, ASMRplays own the patent to have a pump built into this, and every other company who wants to do that has to pay them a fee. So by them not putting it on there, they don't have to pay that fee, effectively enabling them to make more profit, and I guess in this case making the price a lot cheaper as well, so that's kind of nice. Yeah, but you'll see loads of companies use the method of having the pump built into the base plate. They also say that it reduces vibration on the motherboard, so if you had a pump right there and it was kind of vibrating and then it's on your motherboard, no one's really found that to actually make much of a difference, but you never really know, I guess. So guess it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, you know, too much of some food is really bad for you, but there's no, you know, people just say that, but there's no real evidence to it. But you're kind of like, well, I probably shouldn't eat too much of that, because even though no one's actually done the evidence to it, it kind of seems like it makes sense. It may or may not, you know, who knows. But as I said, the main reason is because of the patent, and they don't have to pay the money for that. It has really nice RGB. This is RGB here as well. And what I quite liked about it as well is that it not only allows you to control it through your motherboard if you plug it into an RGB header on your motherboard, which I can't remember if this new motherboard has one or not, but it also has a remote control which you can use it from as well. So I thought that was pretty cool, and it's a touch which a lot of these types of coolers don't have. These coolers can vary wildly in price. As I said, this one was about £75, I think, which is really cheap. I think Raijintek are a really good company. They're German, but they're kind of like German design but made in Taiwan, and they're not like one of your big brands, I guess, like Asus or Gigabyte or Cooler Master, you know, those kind of guys. But those ones would cost you like well over £100, if not close to like 150 for a similar size one. So I'm really intrigued to know what, you know, we get here. The temps I get when my CPU is at max load range around about 70 to 80, which is perfectly fine. So I'll be intrigued to see what this gets it to. Also, this has pretty good like sound. What would be the word? It's not that loud. Pumps are often louder than the air-cooled ones, so water cooling is often louder. But this one's actually supposed to be pretty quiet, and from what I checked of everything, it doesn't seem like it's any louder than the H220 Evo, so I'm intrigued. And again, because it's got the larger fans, it should be able to run them slower, making less noise from a fan point of view, you know, for what's going on here. So we'll see from that. So what I will do is probably take out these two fans here, put one of them up the top because it actually fits a 140 at the top, and then install the cooler at the front here. Hopefully it fits. I was a little bit worried it might not fit. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Cool. Okay. So probably what I'll do is a little unboxing next, and then we can have a look at what's in the boxes and do all that type of stuff. So I'll see you in just a sec. Hey everybody, right, okay, so now we've had kind of a chat about the computer and my upgrade and stuff. Let's actually get to a little bit of unboxing for them. So we have here the Samsung VNAND SSD 970 Evo Plus NVMe M.2. We'll have a look at how small these M.2 drives are in just a sec when we open it. You get two types. There's the SATA and the NVMe. SATA uses your SATA connection, which is up to 6 gigabytes per second, and PCIe is used with NVMe, which is way faster. Exactly whether or not you would really notice that much of the difference is a kind of, you know, it's one of those things. You definitely, I compare it to, for those of you who remember way back when, or maybe put a YouTube video in 480 and then jump up to 1080. Like, that difference is from a mechanical hard drive to an SSD of any type. It's night and day. From the SATA to, say, NVMe, we'll see. I don't think it's going to be that much of a jump, personally. I'll have to let you know after I've installed it, obviously. I would see it probably as a jump from 1080p to 2K, which is, you're like, oh yeah, this is better. But you could kind of live with 1080p, if that makes sense. But we'll see anyway. So you can see it's a kind of a pretty small little box, made in China, as everything is nowadays. And on the back it says Unreal Performance Realized. So there you go, it's got a little tagline there for it. 5-year limited warranty, so if it breaks then I can replace it within 5 years. Other than that, that's kind of it on the back there. Let's get it open here. Without, hopefully, it's got a little sticky tag thing here. I don't know why they do that. I guess it's just to make sure that they know it's not been tampered with or something, I guess. Okay, I'll take this out here. And here you have it. You can see how small it is. Like, it's basically the size of my thumb. A little bit longer perhaps. This slots directly into the motherboard. It has an M.2 drive. You pop it in and then screw it down. It's really simple, or at least it would be simple if the screws were actually reasonably sized. As is, they are so incredibly small, because they fit just kind of like just at that end. It probably goes out of focus a little bit so you can't see it. But it goes just to that end, and as a result it's like really annoying. So yeah, really tiny little drive basically. Let me just see if I can get it out of this. Ooh, actually just completely fell out. And don't worry, you're not going to like harm it by like holding it like this or anything like that. As long as you don't drop it or bend anything or break anything, like it's fine basically. I don't know if it's going to focus here. Can we? No, it doesn't want to focus. Nope. Okay. Anyway, it's very small. So yeah, that'll be very easy to install. The manual that comes with it here, tiny little thing. It's also sealed, weirdly. I don't know why that is. Who seals their manuals shut? I don't know. Anyway, it's an installation guide. I mean, you literally just pop it in and then do that. You then have to play around on Windows and stuff like that and initialize your drives, but I won't go through that now for you. But yeah, that'll be pretty simple. It will go, if I actually just move the camera, so bear with me. So you see where those 3 circles are just underneath the silver metal cooler? That's where you screw it in. It's the second one, I think. No, actually, I think it's the third one. Yeah, it's the third one. The furthest one to the left. There, that will be what it actually goes into there. So yeah, pretty simple installation. Wouldn't have to actually take anything out or apart to actually install that if I was just doing that, but I'm not just doing that. So as a result, I will have to take my computer apart, and that is because we're going to be also installing a CPU cooler. So let's have a look at that in just a sec. Okay everyone, so this is the Orcus RBW280 liquid CPU cooler. So it's called an AIO, which means all-in-one. The reason why it's all-in-one is because it's what is also called a closed loop. So there's water in here, it's fully closed, and you know, it just kind of pumps around. You have like open loop coolers, which will, you know, you'll build yourself essentially, and you'll kind of run the water around. You may see those like crazy designs with all the pipes going everywhere. They're kind of like custom liquid cooling, and generally that is a lot, well, it's way more expensive, but it is generally better, and also obviously it's custom, so you know, people love a bit of customization, don't they? The RGB market of like PCs is kind of like always gets the piss kind of taken out of it, because people are always like, oh, you know, RGB this, RGB that, but everybody realistically likes to have a little bit of customization, whether it's your clothes that you wear, you know, the kind of house you live in, the car you drive. Everyone likes to kind of like customize something, you know. And you know, PC builders are no different. They like to be able to customize things and, you know, make things look cool and, you know, show off their stuff. And I compare it to when I was younger. It was all about cars back then. People, you know, imagine when like the first kind of Fast and Furious film came out, and everyone was all about customizing their cars and doing this and that. And you really don't see it as much nowadays. But certainly it's moved to other areas, and PC gaming is definitely one of them, where people just love to customize it and make things look cool. And you know, we all kind of like, well, I certainly do anyway, and I'm sure others do, all have our kind of like dream system which we'd love to build ourselves one day and do stuff like that. So this is kind of like as much as I could afford, you know, to do. I can't afford a whole custom loop, nor do I have the expertise to, you know, to fit that. I haven't even been able to I've never even fitted a all-in-one before, so I have completely built my computer, and I've built a few more, and I'm confident I can do this, having watched some installation videos on YouTube, but we'll see. Anyway, so this is just the sleeve to the box. I actually took it off already, but we can just have a look. You can see it's the same box for some weird reason as the 140. It seems like a bit of a waste of money, because the 140 would only need a box half the size, because you can see it's only like one fan, and so a smaller radiator. Good for smaller, like if you had like a micro ATX like case. My case is an ATX, or a midi tower, I guess you would say. It's not a full tower, so it's not huge, but it's not small. I like it. It's a good size. It's got enough room for everything, got enough room for things to breathe, so that's important. Back here you can see the specification, so you can see it's got what's called a rainbow block with a blade. This is a unique feature to this cooler, which is a what it would call a kind of flow meter, so you can actually see that spinning and kind of pumping the water through and stuff like that. You have the external pump, and you also get two LED 140mm fans with, you know, your usual stuff. They actually look really cool as well. I really like the Raijintek fans. Really though, we won't really be able to see them because the radiator is going to block a lot of it off, and I don't have and the front is closed off on the S340 Elite. But I actually plan in future on turning that front into mesh anyway, because it doesn't give a lot of airflow, and I'd like a little bit more airflow. So I think this will be quiet enough that it won't make much of a difference, and I've kind of seen online as well how you would do that. So kind of like, again, a little custom thing I can do. It doesn't really cost very much money at all, to just kind of cut a hole in the front and then put some mesh on it. I might do like an interesting design or something, but we'll see. But then that would show off the RGB of those fans a little bit better as well, which is mostly the reason why I'm doing it, let's face it. So yeah, as I say, it's a 280 Orcus 280 RBW. It's got the dimensions of it all. Its weight is about 1 kilo in total. You've got two fans with it. You can get a 120 core which doesn't have the fans with it, so if you just wanted to have your own fans, it's a lot cheaper as well, maybe like £50 you can get it for. I don't know if it has the RGB block or if it's like a single colour, but I know it was definitely illuminated. I did see it, it looked pretty cool. So just kind of looking down here, it's dimensions. The fan noise level, 30 decibels max, which is fine. I think generally what I've seen is they've been around 25, which is essentially what my case is now. 25, I mean 30 decibels if you were just playing normally is nothing. You wouldn't even, you'd notice it a little bit. It wouldn't be like in any way detrimental to your gaming unless you played with your sound really low. But if you're wearing headphones or you just had, you know, semi-loud speakers, you wouldn't even notice a thing. Obviously with me recording, I'll have to see how it is. I think it will be fine, to be completely honest with you. I don't think it will be too much of a problem. It fits on pretty much all the current Intel ones and current AMDs. I don't know about the new AMDs, obviously. I guess no one really knows. They might do like an adapter or something for it, but I don't see why it would have too much of an issue. Wouldn't do something like a Threadripper, I'm pretty sure of that, because it's nowhere near big enough. But we'll have a look now at what we get in the box. So I already opened it because I was trying to work out what exactly I was trying to kind of work out how it opened. So yeah, this is what we kind of get in the box here a little bit. I'll try and center that a little bit. This is the actual, so you can see this is the cabling to the pump. This is the pump right here. That bit mounts onto your CPU. Make sure you tear off this tape before you use, that's what it says. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who have never done that. We have a box here of all the mounting screws and stuff like that. They'll give you all the mounts for AMD and Intel, and looks like it's got some sort of like cable for the 24 pin connector to, I don't know, I'll have a look at what that is later. We kind of take this off. You can see these are the fans here. This is what they look like, obviously not turned on. Pretty hefty. 140mm, always surprising by their size, weirdly. But yeah, it's there. So we've got two of those right there. With, I think they've got four pin connectors. You get fans which have got 3-pin and 4-pin. 3-pin, the 4th pin allows you basically to do the RGB bits on it and control it individually, like the speeds and do all that kind of stuff. So that's important to some people. In here, I'm not actually going to take it out. There's a little bottle of coolant which you can use to top up the radiator with, which is nice. It's a nice little thing to pop in there. And then we have the actual radiator here, as you can see. And then what was on the end is it actually gives you a fan controller, a Raijintek fan controller here, which is really cool because those things actually generally cost you money. It's got a Molex connector, so I'm never going to use it. I don't know why the hell people do Molex nowadays, but that's kind of cool that they've given you that as an option. Yeah, so it's cool. You stick it in, and you get the little remote control to kind of be able to control it. You get more functionality when you plug it into your motherboard, but it's a nice little thing of that I didn't see on any others. So yeah, to get rid of this box, and we can see the it all here basically. Yeah, looks nice, neat, tidy, all looks good. This pump is plastic. Obviously it's got a metal base, but otherwise it's kind of plastic, which I guess you could argue and say metal would be like better, but obviously it'd be way too heavy. I think it would possibly put too much strain on your, because this is going to basically clamp down onto your CPU, and your motherboards are really only screwed in with like tiny little screws. And if you've got this big, this is already pretty heavy. If this was like solid metal, it would be incredibly heavy. So it's actually not too bad. But yeah, that's kind of that, I guess. I had a look there. What I'll do next is kind of take my PC apart a little bit, and then we can talk about the kind of installation and what we're going to do. So I'll see you in a minute, but for me it'll be a little bit longer. See you soon. Hey everybody, so I had planned on giving you a little show, I guess, of my PC with the new water cooler installed, but I actually didn't get around to doing that, and this upgrade was actually a couple of months ago now for me, maybe a bit more than that actually, maybe 3 or 4. And I've actually upgraded some other parts to my PC since then, so I actually plan on doing another video, a part 2 to this, where we'll see everything installed in there. I'll give you my kind of thoughts now on the 2 pieces of hardware that we looked at in this video, because I've been using them now for a few months. We'll start with the SSD, because I guess that's the easiest one. I mean, SSDs are pretty simple. Plugged it in, it worked. Formatted it, it worked. It's fast. Do I necessarily think it is super fast, as in like noticeably faster than another SSD? I'd say a fraction or so, but possibly I wouldn't, well, put it this way, I wouldn't necessarily say if you could get just a normal SSD like not M.2 or NVMe that was way cheaper, then I wouldn't necessarily spend the money on the NVMe. I was in a situation where I'd actually filled up all my bays with SATA connectors, so I actually needed this NVMe M.2 drive. So yeah, played some games on there. Loading times are super quick, as you kind of would expect. I haven't done any direct comparisons between maybe putting it on one of my SSDs or SATA SSDs rather than that, but I do notice it is a bit quicker. So overall, very happy with that. Moving on to the Raijintek 280 cooler. So we had some issues with this. Straight out the box, one of the fans just didn't work, just wouldn't come on, which was a bit of a pain. So it was a dead fan. I tried the other fan, and it was fine, worked as it is, but I did notice they were quite loud. So part of my kind of requirements, I guess, for a PC is that it's pretty quiet, because obviously I record mostly ASMR gaming, and as a result I don't want to have loud fan noise in the background. Now I actually have my PC on my desk at the minute with it running in the background, so if you do hear a little hum, that is the pump. I will say that having replaced the fans with a couple of Corsair Maglev I don't know if they're Maglev fans, but they're very nice fans, which I already owned anyway. So I just replaced them onto the radiator and used it that way, and they work very well. They are virtually silent, those fans, because they're 140mm. They run at a pretty low level. They're not RGB, but they are blue, so they still look quite nice. Go with the theme of my PC. The other thing was, I think I was talking about kind of the mounting of the radiator and how that would work. Now, interestingly, my case, which is an S340 Elite, is not on the official compatibility list. However, it does fit just. Now, this is where it gets a little bit complex. So the way I've got it mounted, and I'll take a picture and put it in here so that you can kind of see. The way I've got it mounted is the fans are in front of the radiator, so it's working on a push kind of technique, pushing the air through to keep the radiator cool, which cools the water as it goes round. What you get provided are these screws which go all the way through your fan and then into your radiator. Because the front of the S340 Elite has a thin kind of like metal, it just, like, the screw just fitted. I mean, it was a millimeter or two. I would say if you really wanted to violently shake it, the radiator might not stay in place. I will say though, it does have 8 screws, so the chances are it probably would. But I've been using it for several months now, and it's not been an issue whatsoever on there. So it's a very, very tight fit, but it does fit. Also, there's no room to potentially do a push-pull in my case, but obviously you can do that if you wish, or have it the other way around even, but I don't think you would just do a pull. I think you would always just do a push. The other side of it as well is that unfortunately the RGB on the pump, I don't know if it doesn't work, but I'm going to go with it doesn't work. So I think I'm disappointed on that as well. I don't have an addressable RGB header on my motherboard, so to be fair, I can't test that. The way it works is you either plug it into that, or you plug it into the little unit, which you then use a remote on. I plugged that into a Molex connector, which I know works, and nothing happens. So either something along the line isn't quite working. With the fact that one of the fans was just dead, I have to think that maybe I just got really unlucky here and got a bit of a dud unit. The actual pump works absolutely fine. I just don't have it light up, which, listen, I can live with that. It still looks pretty good. Technically, yeah, I maybe should send it back and get another or do something like that, but there's a lot of laziness in me, and as a result of which I'm not going to do that. And as I said, I've had it installed for several months now. I'm very happy with the noise levels of it, even when, so it always has this kind of very low hum, which if you obviously are doing things, playing games, whatever, there's no way you can hear it. If you are in silence, yes, you can hear it. Think of it as like a fridge buzz, but at a very, very low level. So just this kind of constant hum. It isn't a nasty pitch or anything like that. It isn't anything horrible, but it's just the sound of the pump constantly going. But when it goes to high, like when I put it under stress, it's a lot quieter than kind of air cooled. So I would say, compared to what I used to have, which was a Evo Hyper 220, 212, I can't remember what it's called now, it's been so long. 212, I think. It under idle, it's louder. So if you're just doing what I am doing now, which is just recording some audio, it's louder. If I am gaming, so it's using the CPU, above, at a high percentage of its usage, it's quieter in my opinion. And I even had an aftermarket fan on my 212, which was a silent fan, but it was still quieter. So that's good, because ultimately what I want from my PC is as quiet as possible when it's under load. When it's idling, I don't mind if it's just gonna give me a little hum. As I said, it is very low, but it is worth kind of pointing that out. In terms of cooling performance, which is another big thing around it, I guess, I have noticed it probably keeps on average, I'd say, maybe 5 degrees, slightly more cooler than my previous cooler did. I had a good cooler, to be fair. The 212, is it the 212? I can't even remember. But the Cooler Master Evo with an aftermarket fan is a decent cooler. Like, if I'm not overclocking, so it keeps it low. This does a better job, as you would expect. It's probably 4 times the price, or 3 times the price, I guess, than that. So you would expect it to, but it's not, it's not Arctic levels or anything like that. Perhaps that a little bit of that could be said for the configuration I have in my PC and wanting to keep the noise level low. So I'm trying to keep I'm keeping the fan curve as low as possible. I do have in my PC, as you could probably see from the picture I'll just leave in the background here, that I've got the setup I've got 2 240mm fans at the front, and then I've got 2 Noctua 120mm fans, one on the top which is exhausting and one at the back which is exhausting, as in it's sucking the hot air out. And it works. I do worry that with the radio in front of the two 140s, there's not enough cool air coming in. But there's not much I can do about that unless I'm going to change my case, which honestly I'm not going to do right now, because number one, I really like it, and number two, that would be a massive pain in the backside. Changing a case is the biggest pain because you literally have to dismantle your entire computer and then rebuild it. If you just change a component in it, then it doesn't make too much of a difference. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I like the design of it. I like the way it looks. I do like the way the pump spins in the middle there. I think that's a really nice little touch, and I think it feels very well made. Reliability wise, obviously I can't say too much. I've only had it for a few months now, but I've not had an issue with it. Certainly no leakage, no spillage. So it's good. At some point I plan to upgrade. Probably in a year or so, I plan to upgrade my CPU to one of the new Ryzens. I've got an i7 6700K. I also might do a little bit of overclocking on it, but not too much, I don't think. As I said, the quieter performance is more important to me than a few frames per second, so that's the trade-off I kind of play. But yeah, overall pretty happy with it. It looks smart in my case. It looks nice. I think it looks better than a air cooler. The performance is a bit better, but ultimately my opinion of it is a little bit skewed because I'm a bit disappointed that it came with a couple of a fan that was dud. The fans overall, as I said, are not quiet, so that's something to bear in mind. If you really want to go for a nice silent build, well, not silent, but very quiet build, then you might need to buy some aftermarket fans to attach to the radiator, but you probably knew that anyway. But if you're just about everyday gaming and you're either playing your sound through speakers or you're wearing headphones, you're not even going to notice it. It's not like I always think back, my current laptop, when that really gets hot, you know about it. It's like a plane's coming into land, so I always feel sometimes like people over exaggerate how loud their like PCs are when you compare them to other things, but ultimately it's up to you what your priorities are and where you want to go. But overall, I'm very happy with the two purchases I made. I feel like I can recommend them both, although I would say, obviously, I think I was an outlying case with my CPU cooler, hopefully. That's not a build quality thing that happens, but ultimately, I got on with it, really. As I said, I probably could have sent it back and got a new one or whatever, but just too lazy. But anyway, thank you for watching. Now, next time, we're going to have a look at, which will be shortly after this one, we're going to have a look at the next upgrade I made to my PC, which was a new graphics card. So that's very exciting. Well, actually a new power supply, new graphics card. But the power supply I didn't like film because it's a power supply. I don't know how exciting that particularly is, but I'm hoping that fixes some of the issues, because I think one of the things I was talking about in this was the problem I was having where my PC was shutting down due to a power surge every now and then, just on certain games. So I had it with the Elder Scrolls mostly. Then I had it with Destiny, and I was like, oh, okay, this isn't just one game. So I figured now's about the time to change your power supply. That might be a warning, because I said I'm going to change the motherboard, see if it's the motherboard. It's not the motherboard, because I changed the motherboard and it was, you know, doing the same thing. So now I've changed the power supply, and we'll see if that makes a difference on how that goes. It's I say it makes a difference, not necessarily. I have gone for a higher wattage power supply. Well, I'll talk about this in the next video anyway, but yeah, till next time, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.